Bismillah. Can we get started, Brother Rashid?
It's redirecting now, so yes, we can go ahead and get started now. Yes.
Great. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A smaller group tonight, but as per usual, I'm sure people will be popping in here, inshallah. So I'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Elizabeth Moreno, and I'm the marketing lead for Embrace Sacramento. So a lot of you I don't know yet, I don't believe, but I'm so excited that you're here with us tonight. And we're just, really excited to have a Salah Refresher, because that is perhaps the most important thing we do all day as Muslims, right? Our 5 daily prayers. And it's always a good thing to talk about and not take for granted, inshallah. So just want to make a quick dua. Oh Allah, thank you so much for gathering us here today, Ya Allah. Please increase us in knowledge. Let our salah be perfect or near perfect, Ya Allah. But we know that you're the only thing that is perfect. Ya Allah, we pray for you to bestow your mercy on Afghanistan, your mercy on Palestine, Ya Allah, all of our brothers and sisters in the Muslim world who are suffering, Ya Allah, please bestow your mercy upon them. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us people of forgiveness and forgive others as we would like to be forgiven on the day of judgment. Ameen. Okay, well, a few more people have joined. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Matina. And before I pass it over to Brother Rashid, who's our presenter tonight, I do just want to say that our halakas are meant to be interactive. So please, while we do have time at the end for open discussion, if there are questions along the way, raise your hand or just come off mute and ask your question. We can, we're always fluid in that way. You can also put questions in the chat if you don't feel like speaking up. And if you want to direct the question for me to ask on your behalf, just send it directly to me in the chat. And if you want to be anonymous, let me know that too. Also, just to be sure when you're not, when our presenter speaking, if you are not planning to ask a question, just to stay on mute, please. That would be great so we don't have any audio interruptions. And we'll be sure to be monitoring the chat and let you know when it's time for open discussion and Q&A. So with that, that's a mouthful, huh? With that, I'll pass it over to you, Brother Rashid.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li samri wa luqatan min lisani. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to go over sort of a salat reminder. So it was about a year ago. We did a series on salat. And so tonight we wanted to just sort of refresh that and leave it open for anyone to ask any questions. And so tonight, from a high level, sort of the lay of the land, or how I want to approach this, is we're going to go over some ayats, and then we're going to look at a video of someone actually making salat, and then we have a word document that we're going to walk through that'll then go further into salat. Then I want to cover what I suspect is going to be some questions on joining the prayer and shortening the prayer, because that's some issues that came up last week. So I have a little section on that as well, inshallah ta'ala. So that's the lay of the land. So go ahead, let me share my screen, inshallah. Okay, can everyone see my screen there?
We sure can.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so our salat refresher, inshallah. So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In Surah Al-Ankabut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that recite, O Muhammad, what has been revealed to you of the book of the Quran, and perform as-salat. Verily, as-salat, the prayer, prevents from al-fahsha, i.e. great sins and every kind of unlawful sexual intercourse, etc., and al-munkar, i.e. disbelief, polytheism, and every kind of evil, wicked deed. So there's some motivation right there for us to perform salat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then a hadith. Abu Hurairah reported, I heard the messenger of Allah say, if there were a river at the door of one of you in which he takes a bath 5 times a day, when any soiling remain on him? They replied, no soiling would be left on him. The Prophet ﷺ then said, that is the 5 obligatory salat prayers. Allah obliterates all sins as a result of performing them. And when the Prophet ﷺ says here, obliterates all sins, these are minor sins, not the major sins. Those we have to seek tawbah for and do other things. But when you're making wudu, that's obliterating some sins. When we pray, that's obliterating some sins. And I think that's one of the beauties and one of the reasons why I became Muslim actually was praying 5 times a day. So that means at that moment, we have an opportunity to thank Allah and seek forgiveness for the things that we may have done or said or not done or not said in those last few hours by praying 5 times a day. So we're remembering Allah often as opposed to just one day a week. So this is certainly motivation and a good thing in Islam, that. So at this particular point, I wanted to just show a video of a brother performing salat, and he's doing 2 rakats. And I intentionally picked him because he's not a sheikh looking kind of guy. He's not a scholarly looking kind of guy. He's just your everyday person. And some of the things that he's saying are audible, and I'll try to clarify that at the end. But some of the things he's saying is audible, and that's more or less for us to learn as opposed to something that we should actually do. So I want to put that disclaimer out there. So here we go.
Allahu Akbar. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabaraka ismuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghairuka. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
That is normally said quietly.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Fassalli li rabbika wanhar. Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Allahu Akbar. Subhan Rabbil Azim. Subhan Rabbil Azim. Subhan Rabbil Azim. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Allahu Akbar. Subhan Rabbil Ala. Subhan Rabbil Ala. Subhan Rabbil Ala.
Usually silent.
Allahu Akbar. Rabbil Firli. Rabbil Firli. Rabbil Firli.
Usually silent.
Allahu Akbar. Subhan Rabbil Ala. Subhan Rabbil Ala. Subhan Rabbil Ala.
It's usually done silent.
Allahu Akbar.
Now he's going to ruku.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahus samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Allahu Akbar. سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العالى سبحان ربي العالى سبحان ربي العالى الله أكبر رب اغفر لي رب اغفر لي رب اغفر لي الله أكبر سبحان ربي العالى سبحان ربي العالى سبحان ربي العالى الله أكبر التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات والسلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته والسلام علينا وعلى بدله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد آمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته
Okay, so so what he did was a 2 rakat salat, which is very similar to like Fajr, right? If he was to do Maghrib or Dhuhr or Asr or Isha, then of course he would be doing more salats, and some pieces of it are silent and some pieces of it are out loud. But essentially, that is the prayer, right? That's the whole cycle that we go through. So the next thing I wanted to go through was our actual document. And this is actually in our, on our WhatsApp group. And I posted it last week. So for those who want to see it, can actually go out to the WhatsApp group and download it there. Or if you want to put your name in the chat, and then we'll make sure that we get this emailed out to you if you give us your email address, inshallah ta'ala. But essentially, before you begin the prayer, there's just a few things that we want to do. So number one, obviously, is making wudu, right? That's the class we walked through last week, where we actually wash ourselves, our hands, then our mouth and our nose and our face and our arms up to the elbow, our head, and then of course our feet. So we go through that wudu process. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we're actually wearing the correct clothing, that we're wearing things that are modest and that are loose, and things that are for women up to the wrists, inshallah, and then down to the feet. And the men, our aura is basically anything from our knees up to our navel. We have to make sure that those spaces are actually covered, and we want to make sure that the clothing that we're wearing is actually clean, and that it's not actually, it has any najis on it, any boo-boo or pee-pee or stuff from dogs, that kind of thing. Just make sure that your clothes is actually that your clothing is actually clean. Then of course, number 3 talks about wudu. So we want to make sure that we have ablution. And number 4 is that we want to pray on time. So if we know the prayer times, and there's all kind of apps and things like that that we can put on our phone, or contact our local masjid, or look online for our masjid to find out what the prayer times are. So we want to try to make sure that we pray on time. And depending on the different schools of thought, is like, praying at the earliest time is always the best. But there are some schools of thought that that say some other times are better. But generally speaking, we want to try to pray, if we can, as early as possible. But we need to recognize that we also have that window. So we don't want to stress ourselves out about that. Then we want to make sure that we're facing the Qibla, which is Mecca, or the Kaaba. We want to make sure that we're actually facing that. And again, there's apps that can actually tell us which direction to go. And here in Sacramento, we're praying actually northeast. A lot of people think it's east, but if you look at them on a globe, east is not going to point you to Saudi Arabia or to the Kaaba, or you can even go southeast. A lot of lesser, some people pray southeast, but the more popular direction from here is to go northeast. And if you want, you can put what we call a sutra in front of you. So like sometimes if you're praying in a crowded masjid, let's just say, or even a crowded location, if you put something in front of you, like a chair or a stick or anything like that, that pretty much lets people know not to walk in front of that space, to walk into your private space. So having a sutra sometimes is good, but generally speaking in the masjid, we don't necessarily do that. But I do see sometimes if people walk into the masjid late, they may put a sutra up, or when they're making the sunnah prayers, they may put a sutra up because there's just, generally speaking, a lot of people walking around. So the next thing, how to perform salat step by step. So the very first thing you want to do is put your palms up in the air and say Allahu Akbar. So your palms are going to be facing forward, and then you're going to say Allahu Akbar. But before that, you're going to make the intention for the actual prayer that you're going to make. So you may say in your heart, I intend to pray 2 rakats Fajr, and then of course saying Bismillah in front of that, and A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim before you actually recite any surahs. But and this right here is where you're going to say Allahu Akbar and have your palms facing the sky. And then next is the A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, which is saying I seek refuge with Allah from Satan. And then after that is when you're going to go into Al-Fatiha. And so here you can read the Arabic and the English. I won't worry about trying to recite all of this for you now, but you're going to recite Surah. You're going to recite a dua if you like, if you know one. And then from there, you're going to go ahead and recite Surah Al-Fatiha. And then you're going to continue on with Surah Al-Fatiha and ending that, of course, with Ameen. And step number 4 is you're going to recite another short surah. In the video we watched, the brother recited, I believe it was Kulhu Wallahu Ahad, right after Surah Al-Fatiha. And in that case, he did. If you're doing Fajr, obviously these are going to be loud. But if you're praying Dhuhr or Asr, they're going to be actually silently. But if you're doing Maghrib or Isha, which are the later prayers, then they're going to be outwardly said as well. Then after you recite Surah Al-Fatiha and any surah that you like, and if you want to recite more than one surah, that's absolutely fine. Then you're going to say Allahu Akbar, and generally speaking, you say Allahu Akbar before you make any moves, before you go to your next step, and that's a general rule. So then you say Allahu Akbar, and then you go into Ruku. And ruku here in step number 6 is where you're actually bent over. And they call that ruku or bowing. And while you're bowing, you're going to say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, which is glory be to my Lord the Supreme. So you're going to recite that 3 times. Then you say Allahu Akbar, and then you stand back up again. Then you say Sami Allahu liman hamida, which means Allah listen to the one who praises him. SubhanAllah. Then you say Rabbina, we'll call Hamd, and then you go down into the sajda position, which is your knees on the floor and your hands on the floor, your feet on the floor, your nose and your forehead. And that's actually 7 different things that are going to be placed on the floor. So you're going to try your best to put your feet, both feet or your toes, both knees, both hands, your nose, and your forehead. So you're going to put all of those on the ground, and you're going to say Subhana Rabbi Alala, Subhana Rabbi Alala, Subhana Rabbi Alala 3 times, which means glory be to my Lord. And so that is actually finishing, or I'm sorry, close to finishing 1 rakat. Then you're going to go back. You're going to sit back in the jalsa position, and of course saying Allahu Akbar before you go back. And like the brother said in the video, Rub Gafirli, Rub Bikfirli, Rub Gafirli, which means, oh Allah, forgive me. So that this is not actually one of the mandatory pieces of the prayer, but is highly recommended that we say that, because the Prophet ﷺ was known to have asked Allah for forgiveness 70 times a day, if not, and more. So we want to make sure we take an opportunity to ask for Allah's forgiveness while we're in prayer. Then from there, we're going to say Allahu Akbar again and go back to the prostration position, which is there on step number 11. And this is one of, a side note, while we're in prostration, this is one of the most humbling positions that we will ever be in as a Muslim. I mean, how many times are we actually, think about this in your life, how many times are you actually in this position? It's very rare, if never, that we're in this position. So we want to take this opportunity to not only say Subhana Rabbi Alala, Subhana Rabbi Alala, Subhana Rabbi Alala 3 times, but also ask Allah for forgiveness and ask Allah for thanks, or thank Him for the things that He's given you, protection from the hellfire, or whatever else you feel you need to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about. This is a very, very good time to do it. And some people you will see will be in a long, will take a long prostration. And that's because they're talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about whatever it is they feel they need to, whatever it is they feel they need to talk to Him about. Oops. Okay. So now we've finished 1 rakat, right? So now we're basically, if let's say it's a fajr, like the brother did in the video where he did 2 rakats, then of course we're going to just go ahead and repeat that whole cycle. I mean, exactly what we just did. We're going to do the same thing. You're going to recite Al-Fatiha and then recite any surah that you want to recite. And then we'll go down, like in step number 2 here, we're going to go down back to the prostration position. And again, that's another good chance to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's a 2 rakat prayer. But some prayers are 4 rakats and some prayers are 3 rakats. So then you're going to repeat those things. But there is 1 step that we want to do, like the brother had done in the actual video, where you're actually giving salams, what they call it tashahud number 1 and tashahud number 2, just to keep it simple. So here is where we're actually giving salams on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and on the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam during this particular process. And that's essentially what he's reciting in surah number 3. So I'm sorry, step number 3. Is tashahud number 1. Then it's finishing up tashahud number 1, And again, for those of you who don't know the Tashahhud piece, I can go ahead and make this document available if you're not already in our WhatsApp group. Okay, so if you're doing a 2 rakat, like I said, if you're doing a 2 rakat prayer, then doing the Tashahhud number 1, you just finished that. Then if you're doing Dhuhr or Asr or Isha, then you're going to go ahead and do 4 rakats. So you're going to go up for your 3rd, and then come back up, and then you go to your 4th, and finish that out. And if it's Maghrib, it's just 3 rakats that you're actually going to do. Then on the very last rakat, and again, if it's Fajr, just plug this right into it. But the very last Jolsa, once you finish all 4 rakats and you're sitting sitting on your feet, essentially, then here is the Tashahhud number 2. This is giving salams, and again, giving salams and blessing on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we always want to remember Allah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during our prayer. And this is just another beautiful part of our religion, is that we're not only recognizing Allah, but we're recognizing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we're not praying to him, we're not worshiping him, but we're just asking Allah to give salams on the Prophet, because the Prophet actually hears all of the salams that we give, that we put on him. And this is the finishing of this. And actually during this point where some people want to point their finger up. Some people will point it up for the whole time they're making this dua. Some people will do it just in the beginning, and some people will wave it back and forth. There's different schools of thought on what we should do here, and we shouldn't criticize other people by how they're waving their finger in their prayer. So we kind of want to stay away. From that. Then the last step is we want to say Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. And then on your other shoulder, you're going to say Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. And you might see some people add Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh at the end of when they're actually giving the salams, and that's perfectly fine. They're just giving a long greeting. When you're actually saying this part here, you're giving salams and blessings on the people that are on the right of you and on the left of you, but also on the actual angels and the jinn. You're giving all 3, the human beings, the jinn, and the angels. You're giving salams and blessings to all of them, to all of mankind, to all of Allah's creation. So, we want to take this part very seriously, and we're not just doing it haphazardly. We're actually giving salams and blessings to those beings on our left and on our right. And then afterwards, a very strong sunnah. And the Prophet ﷺ had actually recommended this, that we actually do this, but we want to say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, and Allahu Akbar 33 times. And this is where sometimes you actually see people counting on their fingers, or they'll have dhikr beads, in either way, but saying Subhanallah 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, and Allahu Akbar 33 times. And if you want to finish, and that's actually equals 99, if you want to finish it off and just say La ilaha illallah, that will actually give it, we'll give it 100. And some people will go even further and recite Allah's names after this, or stop for the law, asking for Allah's forgiveness for any mistakes that they made in their prayer. And there's all kind of things that we can say after this. So, but you'll see some people actually do this after the prayer. So if you're ever wondering what they're doing, this is what they're actually doing. Okay, so the next part of the book actually talks about some of the short surahs that you can actually recite after the prayer. But I'll go ahead and stop sharing right here and then open up to see if anybody has any questions or comments. I see there's a couple of things in the chat space. So we'll go ahead and address those. And then after this, we'll talk about shortening the prayers and joining the prayers. So I have a little graph or a little matrix that we can actually look at for that particular piece. So Ariel is asking, hi, can I get a copy of? Oh, yes, absolutely, Ariel, no problem. We will make sure we send this out to you. So again, just want to open it up to see if anybody has any questions or comments about the prayer.
Well, I don't have any questions in the chat, Brother Rashid directed to me. I mean, I really just, appreciate that reminder. And it's so interesting what you said, we all do things a little bit differently. And when you're at the masjid, people do things slightly differently, right? And so I think there's always something to learn. I know some du'as, I don't always make them right before the salah. I typically make them right before I end the salah. I think memorizing some du'a is something, once you've learned your Fatiha and got a couple of smaller surahs memorized, that's the next thing that we can put on your list. So, what I like about salah is that there are ways to, there's things that will never change, that the components that have to be there for your salah to be valid. But what I like are the little things you can add, like adding extra dua, prolonging your sujood, as you mentioned, to kind of change it up, because we do it every day, 5 times a day, right? So it's good to keep it interesting so it doesn't become like just rote memorization for us. So that's something I like about it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's one of the beautiful parts of the actual prayer is that there's a set amount of things we have to do, right? But above that, we can customize it and we can make it ours. What you say to Allah when your head's on the ground, what you say after the prayer is over, what ayats you actually choose to read at that moment. I know if I'm struggling or having a bad day, I may read an ayat or recite an ayat to ask for Allah's help. So you can kind of customize it to you so that it means something to you. So I think that's a really good point that you raise.
Sister Ariel is asking if any movements are different for women. She's been told different things. You can chime in.
Read that question again. I'm not sure.
If any of the movements in Salah are different for women. Not that I know of. The only thing that I've seen it with people from different cultures or countries. Sometimes I see where they place their hands. That's the only thing. Like men typically tend to put their hands kind of like in front of their stomachs, like when they're reciting, and then women tend to put our hands up here or maybe like across our chest. That's the only thing. But I mean, I think the basic movements of ruku and sujood are the same. Brother Rashid, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, my understanding is they're pretty much all the same. I mean, we're both doing the same things, but yeah, where the hands are placed seems to be different sometimes. Whether they're up high or down low. I know as men we tend to put it right above our bellies, especially those got big bellies. But sort of put it above their bellies, but I've seen some guys hold it kind of below. And in the Maliki fiqh or the Maliki schools, brothers and sisters will actually put their hands at their sides. So it kind of depends on the school of thought you're from, but generally speaking, all of the movements are the same, and just where your hands are actually placed in front.
Is when people do the initial takbir, the initial Allahu Akbar. I've seen some women only raise their hands up to their shoulders, while most men typically raise their hands up here by their ears. What I normally see around here in our area is, everyone kind of raises their hands up by their ears. So I mean, that's just some differences I've noticed, but yeah.
Yeah, because I know me and a lot of the guys who I've been around for decades. We tend to go. It seems like by default, it's like by our shoulders. But the main thing is that your palms are facing forward.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, there can be at different spaces, either the ears or the shoulders. So I've seen a little bit of both, and some will only raise them up to their chest. They'll just give
Yeah,
a short
a
little.
little
Yeah,
courtesy,
one of
a
my boys
courtesy
does that.
for
He's like, I've known him for 20 something years, but yeah, he just goes right. He's right around his heart, and then that's it. That's where he goes. But
I like Imam Amr, Salam. I remember him telling us a few years ago that when you do that motion, he says, think of it like you're pushing all your cares and worries away. And so now I do kind of like a big exaggerated motion because, I like that idea. I like that idea of, okay, whatever meeting I have coming up next, I'm pushing it all away.
Just letting it go.
So I like
that. Yeah, and I heard someone say too that you're pushing Shaitan down, so you're like pushing him down.
Oh, okay.
So
I like
that was
that.
just another thing that I heard over the years. It's something to think about. But one thing too that I'd heard, and I'll share, is my first fiqh teacher said that there should never be any point within the prayer where you're silent. So, either saying La ilaha illallah or whatever it is that you want to say, but since you have that opportunity to be in front of Allah and to worship Allah, there should never be any point where you're actually silent. And that does happen sometimes. I'm just keeping it real. But we should try to do what we can to try to not allow silence to creep into our prayer if we can. Okay.
I have another question. I hope we answered Sister Ariel's question. And if we didn't, forgive us, or please ask a clarifying question in the chat, inshallah. I have two questions. So one question is, you said something about being silent. So I know there are prayers that are done silently, like the Duhur prayer and the Asr prayer typically are, not recited out loud. You just say the Allahu Akbar each time and Sami Allahu liman hamida, but we don't say them out loud. But for most of us who just kind of pray at home on our own, we're not, even at the other prayers like Fajr and Maghrib and Isha, it's rare that I would recite it out loud. I mean, but someone once told me that your prayer, oh great, alhamdulillah, Ariel says we answered our question.
Yeah, I see it, yeah. Okay.
So until the next question, Ariel, please continue to ask. But if someone told me that you should always be moving your lips. So like, for example, if I'm in the office and I'm praying there, obviously I'm not going to pray loud, but they said something about, you should be moving your lips at least. So I was curious if you've ever heard about that.
Yeah, because you kind of want to keep your lips moist. I mean, I'm not always diligent in doing it myself, but I know when I'm like dhickering, I try my best to move my lips because if I'm moving my lips, it seems like I'm almost hearing myself. But you want to keep your lips moist with the remembrance of Allah. So that kind of goes along with that saying. So you want to try to move your lips and try to say things in your heart and not just your head, or else it just becomes an everyday mundane thing. But if we're moving our lips and we're actually saying it, then it's a little more reflective of an item. So that's a good point.
So Ariel, this is so great. You see what she's written. I'm a new Muslim.
Yeah, I see it. I'm a new Muslim, and I'll be there quite a lot. Use notes to assist me. Yes, yes, your salat will be accepted. Because Allah knows that you are striving and trying your best to learn the salat. So whatever you have to do to learn it, Allah will accept it. And then once you get to the point where you don't need those helpful tools, then of course you let those go. In fact, when I learned how to pray, when my dad taught me how to pray, he had very big cardboard cutouts on the floor. And I would actually look to my right and read that and do my prayer.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah, and then obviously after a while you memorize that and you don't need those things anymore. But yeah, whatever you have to do to get there, Ariel, whatever you got to do to get there, Allah knows that you're trying your best, and Allah will accept that, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. I learned to pray pretty much off of YouTube and did that for quite a long time. Like, it just started out, I couldn't recite anything, so you know, I just went along with it. Like I just listened to it and did the movements when I was supposed to do the movements. And then I got to the point where I could, you know, kind of recite along. And then I finally memorized Al-Fatiha and stuff. And still to this day, though, when I want to learn a new surah, because I do try to learn a new surah, like, as you know, as often as my goal used to be once a month, but I fell way behind on that.
Yeah.
But I still will print it out, and I will put it on a little note card and just literally hold it in front of my face until I can memorize it. So yeah, inshallah. I mean, and I think yes, CC said that, very true. You will be rewarded extra for your any struggles as long as you are striving to be righteous, which is absolutely true. Alhamdulillah. And you know, it's like it's not going to come overnight. We just got to keep trying, and it just takes a long time. But inshallah you'll get there. Just keep trying, and Allah sees how hard you're trying. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and again, Allah knows, you know, what you're trying to do, and whatever tools we have to use to learn the Arabic, inshallah, during our prayer, because we want, at the end of the day, we want our prayers to be in Arabic, right? We don't want to just consistently do them in English and not even try to learn the Arabic. So we want to try to learn it to the best of our abilities. And if you have to have cards in front of you, or YouTube, or things on the floor, whatever it takes to get you there, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to I kind of want to ask people, what struggles are you having with prayer? I mean, is it like the timing of it? Is it learning the Arabic? Because I know 5 times a day, you know, some people look at that as a struggle in terms of it being sustainable, and I get that, and that's a real question that people have to deal with. But I kind of want to just ask people out there, what are their biggest struggles when it comes to the prayer? And again, you can put that in chat, or take your mic off mute, either way. Oh, we got the shy group tonight.
I just, you know, I know that time's going to change here in a couple months, and I'm going to be like, what? I thought I had 2 more hours to pray duhur. It's already asr. Like, I just messed around and missed my prayer. Like, it seems like when the time first changes and those windows get real short, I'll struggle to make my prayers on time because of work. Ariel says it's
okay, I see in the chat where Ariel's saying it's the Arabic for sure. I don't worry about the timing sometimes, but I have been make it what you're making it work. And so yeah, I can definitely understand the Arabic. If you're not around, thank you. If you're not around the Arabic a lot, or even if you are, I mean, if you're not hearing it, then sometimes you like read it and you're like, oh, man, is that word right? Am I saying that word right? So then there's that struggle, because we're working so hard to make our prayer perfect, and we want to try to do it right. So I definitely understand the Arabic. I think I you know, full disclosure, I guess on my end of it, I guess I was very, very blessed and very fortunate that at the time that I was actually, after I learned my prayer, then I connected with one of the brothers at the masjid, and he actually went through all the surahs that I know and cleaned them up for me. So it's like, okay, well, this part you need to recite better, and this part you need to recite better, and this part you need to recite, change that. And it was a struggle, and it was hard. It was not easy. But if your intentions are really, really, really there, and you know, we want to try to remove any mustard seed of arrogance from our own hearts, and just make a dua to Allah, putting our head on the floor, even asking Allah at that particular point for the Arabic, then he will give it to you. Allah will make it easy. Trust to believe that is going to happen. But I can certainly understand why the Arabic was the difficult part. So I see, it's, wow, 7:17 already. So I'm gonna hit on this combining piece really quickly here, combining and joining, and then finish off with any other questions that folks may have. But for shortening and joining prayers, because I know this is kind of a big thing for people sometimes, but in the very first column, I put the number of rakats that is actually in that prayer, meaning the number of times you go to the ground and come back up. So Fajr is 2, Dhuhr 4, Asr 4, Maghrib 3, and Isha 4. And Dhuhr, generally speaking, for those, I think most of you probably know this, but for as a reminder to myself and everyone, Fajr right now, is around 5:10 a.m. Dhuhr is about 1:15 a.m. Asr about 5 p.m. Maghrib close to 8, about 7:55, 8 p.m. And Isha around 9:15 p.m. So those are round about the times that we have now. And again, we have a window in there in which we can pray. But for shortening your prayers, you can actually shorten your prayers if you're traveling. And there's a difference of opinion on the number of miles that you have to travel before you shorten them. But on average, it's about 40 miles. That's sort of the general consensus amongst most of the scholars, is about 40 miles, 41 miles, that once you go beyond that, then you can actually shorten your prayer. So if I, let's say, go to San Francisco or Oakland, then I'll start to shorten my prayers. And so when you shorten your prayers, okay, Fajr, you can't shorten that at all. Maghrib, you can't shorten that at all. However, the 4 rakat prayers, Dhuhr and Asr, which are 4 rakats, you can actually, in that column called shorten, you can actually shorten those prayers to 2 rakats, shorten those prayers to actually 2 rakats if you've traveled those number of miles. And it's also okay to combine your prayers. You don't want to make this a regular habit because there is a window of time in which to make your actual prayers. But if you want to combine your prayers, you can combine Dhuhr and Asr, and you can combine Maghrib and Isha. So Dhuhr, and there's sort of a difference of opinion on this, but there is a popular opinion that if you're traveling, if you want to do Dhuhr and Asr, if you want to pray Asr at the time of Dhuhr, you can do that. So you can do Dhuhr and Asr at the time of Dhuhr. Or at Asr, you can do Dhuhr and Asr together in terms of combining them. And then the same thing with Maghrib and Isha. You can do Isha at the time of Maghrib or Maghrib at the time of Isha if you're going to combine. And the thing is that you want to take a break between the prayers, but you don't want to take a long break, right? So if you're going to do Dhuhr and Asr, do Dhuhr, then take a little tiny, 5-second break or whatever, make the intention, and then go into Asr. And the same thing with Maghrib and Isha. You don't want to have a large separation between the two. But let's say someone needs to make wudu or something in between or whatever, then they can do that. But again, you just don't want to take a long break, because then you've lost that benefit of doing the combining. And if there's some flexibilities in this. This gets really heavy into, or can get heavy into, the jurisprudence or the laws of the deen. And so I don't want to get too deep into that, but I wanted to just kind of share the thought that you can combine Dhuhr and Asr. You can combine Maghrib and Isha, and you can shorten these actual prayers down to two rakats each. So is there any questions on that? I know this can get a little fuzzy. So is there any questions on this piece right here?
None in the chat, Brother Rashid. I've always been confused on the combining. I know about shortening the prayers and stuff when we travel, but like on a normal day, you would not just combine your prayer, right?
No, on a normal day, you're not. And you want to try to stay away from the combining or making it a regular habit. But I know sometimes if you're working, let's say, and work becomes real hot and heavy, and you just have an issue getting away with Dhuhr, then if you want to combine Dhuhr and Asr, you can. But again, you don't want to make that a regular thing. And I know that happens to me sometimes at work. I have meetings or systems crash. I'm in IT. So if systems crash or there's problems, or I got to reboot a server, you know, whatever's happening, if the job needs my attention at door, then I may have to, and I get off at 5, which is the time of Asr, I may have to do during Asr when I get off work. And I try to avoid it because I want to take time off work to thank Allah for even having a job or whatever it is, right? So I want to make door to the best of my ability. So I'm real strict about that. But at times I just can't do it. You know, it just doesn't work. And I'm just using myself as a practical example, but
yeah, I always wonder about people like, you know, I know you and I kind of have office jobs and, you know, every now and again we might get sucked into something, but for the most time, you know, I find I can make time to pray. But I always wonder about people like nurses or paramedics or, you know, jobs where, you know, you really just can't stop what you're doing. And then, you know, inshallah, I guess, you know, they just pray when they can. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's our intention. I mean, Allah knows, you know, if you're a surgeon and you're in a 4-hour surgery, I mean, you just can't stop when the azan comes. I mean, you know, you just can't. And so I guess, you know, we just do our best. We should always be making salah a priority, you know, and it's just, you know, I know for certain people, including myself at times, I've really struggled with it. It's so much easier now that we're working from home. But when I was in the office, sometimes always even having a place to pray, you know, could be hard during the day.
Right. Okay, and I know we're coming close to 7:30, so I'll end with two hadiths. So Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "There are angels who take turns in visiting you by night and by day. And they all assemble at the Fajr and the afternoon Asr prayers. Those who have spent the night with meaning the angels, who have spent the night with you, ascend to the heavens, and their Rabb, who knows better about them, asks, in what condition did you leave my slaves? And they reply, we left them while they were performing salat, and we went to them while they were performing salat." So sort of a translation of this, or to put it in words we might be able to understand, the angels are always watching us, right? But at the time of Fajr, angels leave and the new angels come in. And then at the time of Asr, the ones that came came to you at Fajr, then at Asr time they leave, and then new angels come. And some say that scholars say that this happens on Mondays and Thursdays. Others say this happens every day. So Allah knows best on which days it happens. But the main thing is that the angels are with you and the angels are watching you, and Allah knows best and Allah knows everything. But he's asking the angels, in what condition did you leave my slaves? And the angels are saying, we left them praying. And subhanAllah, I mean, the angels are actually talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about you and about what you are doing at the time of Fajr and at the time of Asr. And those are just beautiful, a beautiful reminder. Alhamdulillah. And the last hadith I'll leave you with is Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu, or may Allah be pleased with him, reported the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a man's salat in congregation is 25 times more rewarding than his salat at home. Wait a minute. So the screen is kind of chopping off here. Hold on one second. Let me move something out of the way. There. You know. Okay, here we go. So Abu Hurairah who reported, Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a man's salat in congregation is 25 times more rewarding than his salat at home or in his shop. And that is because when he performs his wudu properly and proceeds towards the mosque with the purpose of performing salat in congregation, he does not take a step without being raised a degree in rank for it, and having a sin remitted for it, till he enters the mosque. When he is performing salat, the angels continue to invoke blessings of Allah on him as long as he is in his place of worship in his state of wudu. They say, "Oh Allah, have mercy on him. Oh Allah, forgive him. He is deemed to be engaged in salat as long as he waits for it." So I wanted to share this hadith because it really talks about the benefit of praying salat in congregation. So if you can make it to your masjid, I would highly recommend doing that because the number of blessings that you receive is a number of 25, according to some narrations, and 27, according to other narrations, more blessings or more benefit that you actually get to that. And if you make wudu at home and then you're traveling to the masjid, and then you're actually waiting for the imam, that whole time the angels and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is considering you to be in salat. And again, when you're getting all of those blessings. And if you pray Isha in congregation, it's like you prayed half the night. If you prayed Fajr in congregation, it's like you prayed half the night. So if you pray both, it's like you prayed all night. So inshallah ta'ala, that's some benefit and some encouragement to pray salat in congregation, to pray Fajr or Asr in congregation. And I will note that Dhuhr, Asr, and praying Fajr and Maghrib, Fajr and Isha, in congregation, that there's a lot of benefit in that. But it also too is Asr, Dhuhr, and Maghrib. You get the blessings of those as well, inshallah ta'ala. So I'm hoping we can all use that as motivation to try to get to the masjid. So that's the end of my presentation. Unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Sister Elizabeth for any announcements or a moderator. Oh, there's one question.
Yeah, it looks like Martina's just saying goodbye and that she's got to run, but thanks for your sis. Really, the only reminder is about the upcoming halakas. The next 3 will have to do with marriage and Islamic courtship and Islamic like online, meeting people online. We don't want to call it dating, but you know, the online way to meet people the halal way. So next week I will be presenting on marriage in Islam. The following week I'll also be presenting on Islamic courtship, and the third week we'll have a guest speaker talking about kind of online ways to meet people in a halal way for some matrimonial sites and things like that, inshallah. And that's really all I have. So we'll ask Brother Rashid to close us out with dua and we can end for the night.
And you are the creator, the sustainer, and the maintainer of all that exists. It is you who will cause us to die and who will raise us up. And we ask on that day that you please make us among those who are placed in a high station in paradise. Ya Allah, please allow our families to also enter paradise. Grant us all mercy and forgiveness and protect us from the hellfire. Ya Rabbal Alameen, please lift this pandemic from this earth, and please help all of those in Afghanistan. Please help all of those that are going through mental health issues as a result of what's happening in Afghanistan. Ya Allah, please remove any mustard seeds of arrogance from our heart and help us to benefit from anything that we've heard tonight. Please help us to be steadfast in our prayers. Please help us to be steadfast in our wudu. And Yah, please help us to be amongst those who are patient and amongst those who you bless. Subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal 'asr. Inna insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah.
Thanks everyone.